Hello and welcome back. Tonight on the bench we have two Model 1911 A1s that were manufactured by the Ithaca Gun Company. Now these are both 1943 production, so right in the middle of World War I. And I want to get into just a brief background on Ithaca. For those of you not familiar with it, Ithaca was founded in 1880 by Leroy H. Smith and several other associates, and his background was in shotguns, and he had formerly been associated with the L.C. Smith Company of Syracuse, New York. Now, the Ithaca Gun Company was located in Ithaca, New York, and in 1916, he purchased the assets of Lefevre Arms Company of Syracuse, New York. And then in 1931, they acquired Western Arms Corporation's stock, and then the three companies were merged in 1936 under the name of Ithaca Gun Company. Now, they were the only firearms manufacturer other than Colt to make the 1911 A1 service pistols in World War II, and they were the first to receive a World War II contract, of course, other than Colts. Now, they were surveyed by the Rochester Ordnance District in 1937 for the future manufacture of the Model 1911 A1s in case of a national emergency, and they were supplied with drawings, samples, and specifications for familiarization with the pistols. Now, they were asked to submit a bid on an educational order in 1940, and Ithaca really didn't want a government contract after what they had seen happen to contractors during World War I, and they reluctantly accepted. And then in July of 1940, Springfield Armory forwarded a packet of information on a production that was prepared by Singer Manufacturing Company. They studied the info and submitted a bid later in the year, but by that time, educational orders had been discontinued. They were only doing production orders by that point in time. So some other things that happened: Colt contracted Ithaca in 1941 to finish parts that were supplied from Springfield Armory, and those parts were from the salvage, the ordnance salvage after World War I. And those came from Remington Arms UMC, their World War I production. Now, these parts were realized to be unusable due to obsolete manufacturing processes, and then the tooling that had been sent also had to be rebuilt. And then the contract was canceled, and most of the parts were scrapped. And during this time, Ithaca received a contract for several thousand shotguns and M1917 bayonet attachments. So in January of 1942, Ithaca was invited to bid on a production order of Model 1911 A1s, and they were awarded a contract for 60,000 of them at approximately $13,000 per month. And they couldn't meet the production quota due to slow procurement of manufacturing equipment. So in December of 1942, they received 6,200 receivers from Springfield Armory of World War I manufacturing, and they were Colt receivers, and some of those will have the heart-shaped opening, as we saw in just a recent video. And they ended up having to finish machining those, and that would, of course, include having to do the finger clearance cuts. And the World War I receivers, and this happens to be a World War I Colt receiver on this one right here, and they're identified by the H that's at the 6 o'clock position near the disconnector hole. Now, Ithaca purchased over 7,000 receivers and 2,200 new slides from Colts during late 1942 through early 1943. Now, none of these parts were marked by Colts, but they can be identified by a small radius curve in front of the left ejector port, which, as you can see, this one here has the small radius curve here at the front of the ejector port. So more than likely a Colt's receiver, or excuse me, slide. And so their first 60 pistols were produced in December of 1942. And not all the manufacturing equipment was installed until March of 1943. So many of the parts that they used came from Colt's, Remington Rand, Union, Switch, and Signal. And then later on, subcontractors supplied many of the other parts too, as you can see, like this mainspring housing down here is, of course, a subcontracted part there. Good example exposed right there. And now they have a crude appearance, and they slowly became more refined. And when I'm talking about a crude appearance, like on the thumb safety here, you can see these machine marks on here, just not something you see on the Colts products. They're just much more refined. And then like these radius in here, and then the machining in here, you can see just there's a lot of machine marks on these. Two, we also have like the hammer here, the checkering on it is just, it's not very well done. And then you can see this is one of those narrow hammers. It doesn't have the flanges on it, similar to what we've seen recently on the Colts of this time period. Now they had a lot of ordnance rejections, and by August of 1943, the ordnance, the number of rejections indicated that they were just a substandard pistol. And what it turned out to be was lack of trained personnel and inadequate inspection gauges. So the production quota was reduced to 10,000 per month. And then they changed the way they were doing production. They added more inspectors, and they changed the way the assembly line the production line was set up. So they had it more of a straight line production. And then, let's see, in September of 1943, they started incorporating marks that they used on their shotguns that were used by Lefevre Arms and by the, Lefevre Arms and Western Arms Manufacturing. Now, after they did this, they took and they moved the serial numbers to the stamping to the last bit of operation, and they stamped it after parkerizing, so they would leave the stamped serial number would have a bright exposed fresh metal there. And so the quality, or the change of procedure, really improved the quality of the pistols. And by mid-1944, the number of rejections was greatly reduced. Now, overall, Ordnance was not impressed with Ithaca, and they believed that they contributed very little to the improvement of the pistol or of the manufacturing process of the pistol. And in total, they manufactured 335,466 of these pistols. Now, taking a closer look at this pistol, we're going to see that it has the FJA stamp on this. Let me see if I can get in here close enough. There you can see that. And that is for Colonel Frank J. Atwood, and he was Rochester Ordnance District Army Inspector of Ordnance from June of 1942 through March of 1946, and his are found on the total production of all Remington Rand and Ithaca pistols. Now, this particular pistol shipped May 25th of 1943 to the Augusta Ordnance Depot in a shipment of 500 guns. And as I said, this one has a Colt frame, which is one of the notable notes on it. And then just taking a quick look at this, little things like you can also see that the proof stamp is off and canted, and just machining marks in other areas. And anyway, it's just, you can tell it's just not quite as refined as what we see in the Colts products. So there you go. This is just a quick video on the Ithaca line of 1911 pistols produced during World War II, or I should say the Ithaca model 1911 A1s. But there you go. That's basic rundown of Ithaca in their contribution to the 1911 history. Alright, hey, thanks a lot for tuning in and watching. Hope you enjoyed this short video, and have a great evening.